and we can expect more of that.
Marshall Radio.
Play that again.
There's music.
It's my opening.
Yes. Are you going shopping?
No. There we go.
This is Just Keep Breathing with your host, Richard Curtin on Marshall Radio.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Just Keep Breathing. This is RationalBroadcasting.com, the Friday edition of Just Keep Breathing. I am Richard Curtin, your host, with my in-studio guest today, the goddess, Layla LaRue.
Not the goddess.
The goddess. How are you, gal?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Oh dear. There we are. We're having some...
I'm not used to having something like this so close to my mouth.
But it's black.
I know. Without it being in my mouth is what I was going to say.
Well, today we're going to talk drag, and we're going to talk pageants, and we're going to talk the goddessry of Layla LaRue. You are the current reigning Miss Gay US of A Classic.
Yes, I am.
You're a former Miss Gay US of A. You're a former Texas US of A.
Mm-hmm.
You are a former Texas Entertainer of the Year. You're a former Texas America.
And Texas FFI.
Texas FFI. And you work the current promoter and owner of Texas FFI.
Right. Busy person.
You're a busy gal.
I am. For my own good sometimes, I think.
Well, I think that I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that completely. Let's talk about how you got started.
Well, actually, I was just talking to Daniel earlier before we started this. I started because my ex-boyfriend, when we moved to San Antonio, started doing drag. We were both part of a dance company in California, and we really didn't have an outlet. And so we started going to the drag shows, fell in love with the whole idea of it. He entered the talent night. I would be give him his critiques at the end of the performances on the way home. And one night we got into it. I said something kind of mean, something like he couldn't dance, or he shouldn't do this, or he shouldn't do that. And we got into an argument, and one thing led to another. And I was like, look, I'll show you. It can't be that difficult. And so the next week, there I was. I have it recorded. I was telling Daniel I've got it recorded because it was going to be a one-time gig. I was like, we'll laugh about this in years to come. And who would have known that 17 years later I still would have been doing this?
So what did you do the very first time that you did drag?
I was in love with Patti LaBelle at the time, and I swore I was Patti LaBelle. So not only did I try to look like Patti LaBelle, I did New Attitude. That was my very first song. It was a live version of Patti LaBelle's New Attitude.
And when you look back at the tape, what do you think?
What a mess. What a mess. Oh, I'm serious. I mean, I was wearing a $2 wig, something I found in the thrift store, It was just crazy.
And you thought you were Patti LaBelle?
Yeah.
Did you wear the nails and everything?
I wore the nails. I wore the bucket head, and I kicked off my shoes, and I was wearing a dress that had a split on the side, and because she always wears trains, I added a yard and a half piece of fabric on the side of the dress, and just pretended that it was kicked off to the side. That was glued on to the dress.
It was glued.
Yeah, it was glued.
Did it fall off?
No.
No, it made it the performance?
Yeah.
That's hot. That's very funny. The very first time I did drag, I had boy hair, and I painted my nails red, my boy nails, I painted them red, and I wore my boy hair, and I wore lipstick, and I wore a dress, like a t-shirt dress. This is like 1985. And I had these hot pink pumps that I bought at Florsham Shoes.
Oh.
They had pumps on parade.
Oh, God.
And so I bought this pair of hot pink pumps, and this little t-shirt dress had little pink polka dots all over it.
Mm.
and and did Hot Lunch from Fame.
Hot lunch.
Hot
Oh my
Lunch.
God.
Just because I just love the line,
Yeah.
tuna fish, my favorite dish, hot lunch. And if you think back on the song, you know that there's really no lyric to it. There's very little. It's
I
just
don't
a
think I've
bunch
heard
of
that
it's
in
just
a
a bunch of
long
music.
time, yeah.
It's just a bunch of music, except for tuna fish, my favorite, Lynn. Hot lunch, and it was just a bunch of running around, and I jumped all over everything, and oh, it was such a hot mess.
I won my first time.
And that was a talent night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not.
I won. Okay. Yeah, I won. So
And so this was talent night in
it was
San
a talent
Antonio.
night in San Antonio. Yeah.
Is there an unwritten rule that girls from San Antonio have to learn how to do fantastic hair?
Well, I think we come from a great background of people who have just been great with hair. And I think we all just kind of watch and learn and study and practice. And I think that is really how we're able to kind of follow in that.
Yeah.
You know, because it
I
seems
have
like there's
not
a lot of
met
great hair
one
people.
queen from San Antonio that does not know how to do
Yeah.
great hair. Seriously, I don't think that. Do you know of any? Who does the worst hair in San Antonio?
That's probably the best question. Who's the worst? I think I don't know if I can name anybody in particular, but there's quite a few. I think.
But
not that many.
But not that many.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I have not really met a queen
Yeah.
from San Antonio that does not know how to do great
There's
hair.
this one queen who's just started. I think she's been doing drag for 2 years. Her name is Stephanie Austin, and she always has a problem with her hair. It always falls off.
Well, Dallas.
But we're helping her.
Sahara Davenport. For the longest time when she was here, her hair was always just a hot mess. It was. I mean, she could dance and she could really. She could even paint her mug, but she always looked like she had hay for hair. So is there a girl that's like that in San Antonio?
Probably her, Stephanie Austin, right now. She's the current reigning.
Current reigning bad hair girl.
Right. Current reigning bad hairstylist.
So you won the talent night. So where from there? Did you go straight into pageantry?
No, I mean, it was all just for fun,
Right.
I won that, and then one thing, I think this, that's why I believe that this was my calling per se, because I was there that night, I won. There were some people in the audience who booked me to do a birthday gig. I said no at first, and then they were like, "Well, we'll pay you $125."
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah."
Well, okay, well, let me get that glue gun out.
Right, yeah. So I was like, "I've only got this dress." She was like, "That's fine. That's what we want you to do." I went. I did it. That night, it was a small little bar. The bar owner asked if I would host Thursday nights and MC a strip off. And I was like,
So you
"What?"
did drag twice, and you
Exactly.
got a gig.
Yeah. And so I said I had to think about it. And originally my plan was, my boyfriend at the time really wanted to get into the whole drag thing. I loved supporting him and I loved watching it, but I never really wanted to do it myself. So I said, this is what we'll do. I'll agree to do the gig. I'll do 2 or 3 weeks of it, and then I'll tell him, look, I can't do it anymore, but if you want, you can give it to my boyfriend here, who has been performing these 3-4 weeks as my guest for free, and I'm sure that they'll like you, and then it'll be
Yeah,
again,
it'll be like a nice
Right.
little segue,
right. Well,
and we'll get
after about-
we'll get you in the door.
right. That was the plan, and so after about a month, I started really liking it, and I started really feeling comfortable with what I was doing and things, and so he never got the gig. We broke up, and I still stayed.
What is he doing now? Is he doing drag now?
No, he did drag for me about 4 months. 4 months after that, and then he moved.
He
We
said-
broke up. He moved back to California, but
Oh.
we're friends.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And so, your first pageant.
The first pageant ended up being the newcomer pageant of
Okay.
that same year, and then I ended up winning that, and they gave me a spot as a cast member at the Old Saint, which is I think the Paper Moon then still. And so I would get like 2 days, started working with people like Victoria West and Erica Andrews and Melissa Crawford and Shady Lady, those people. And that really is what kind of started polishing me up, and I started to pay attention to what I looked like. Because at first I didn't. It was not about being glamorous to me. It was about being funny. So
having fun and having a
and
good
having
time.
fun, right?
Yeah.
And so then when I started to pay attention to what I looked like is when it got a little harder, because then I started to have to spend money.
Yeah, and
You
it's
know,
expensive.
and that's when it got a little serious, and I started backup dancing for people as a way to not only get experience, but to also learn the ropes and see what goes on behind the scenes. Because that, I think, is probably most important for people to learn first, is to see how it goes, what really goes into it, and then make a decision whether or not you want to prepare to do and enter that field. Because it's expensive, you know, it can be hurtful, you know, and I think sometimes people forget that, you know, or don't even know or realize how serious it can be.
Yeah, you really open yourself up to a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everyone walks through an open door for scrutiny.
Right. And if you have any kind of insecurities, trust and believe those are going to, you know, if it's your weight, if it's your teeth, whatever it is, everything,
Right.
you know, you're putting yourself out there, and you're going to be judged on every damn thing, you know.
So, who are you backup dancing for?
I first backup danced for Victoria at Miss USA. That was the first time I ever went.
Was that Xanadu?
Xanadu. Yeah, I was one of the flag girls.
Yes, I knew that.
And then I was backup for Oprah DeMauro when she went for Miss National in Florida. And I also did backup for Erica as Miss USA. Or as Miss Texas at Miss USA.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it was. You know,
Did you ever work with Tandy?
I never met. I met her, and I moved to San Antonio in August, and she died that next February.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I saw her perform, but I never got to really meet her or get to know her because I wasn't doing drag at that time yet.
I met her one time,
Yeah.
and I was Edna Jean, and I had just done a show at the Roundup, and there was a whole group of people, and they kind of shuffled me and Pitiful over to meet her, and I'm going to say this is like 1992, and she was so awful to me.
Was she?
She was so awful to me. She looked at this little greasy-haired freak, you know, like, whoa, and and kind of shooed me away, and then turned around and gave me her back. And I thought, who is that tranny? In fact, we didn't call each other tranny then, but you know, she was very rude. She was
Really?
very rude to me. And
I remember seeing her at one of the performances on a Sunday night in San Antonio, and I, at that time, you know, was all about Shady Lady and Tandy Andrews. You know, she was just so beautiful, and she was just a great performer, and Shady was just hilarious to me. So I was
Yeah.
there every Sunday, and I remember sitting real close up to the front. And, you know, this was way before I did drag, so I had short hair, and I was younger, and I was kind of, you know, as masculine as I could be then. And I remember she said, "Oh, trade." So I remember looking up at it, and I was like, "Oh, she called me trade. Of all these homosexuals here, she picked me out to call trade." You know, that's the only thing that she ever said to me, or I even, you know.
well, she just gave me eggs. She gave me her back. And I remember saying to Pitiful Bitch, because, you know, we were the comedy duo at that point. I was like, has she not seen that Adam's apple? As we walked away.
Oh God.
I wonder what she would have done if she had heard
Right,
that.
right.
Because, you know, now knowing how she was.
Right.
Because, you know, she was kind of a diva.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what I've heard from many people, even those that are really close to her or were close to her. It's like that she was very, very that way.
So your first pageant after Newcomer, let's call it your first vie for a state title,
Was Miss Texas.
was Miss Texas.
I went there. The first year I went, I made the top 12 and I was 8th. And then the second year I went as Miss San Antonio, I was 2nd runner-up. And then the third year I won.
So three
you know-
times was the charm, and that
Yeah.
was also for Miss Gay US of A too. Was it 3 times it, or was
For
it
Miss
4
USA.
for US
No,
of A?
I went a total of 5 times to Miss USA. The first year I was third runner-up. The very first year I went, I was third runner-up. Then the second time I went, I was 12th. Yeah, I had a mishap during my talent, and it was just a mess.
And they happen.
Yeah, and then I didn't go for 2 years, and then I went back and I got first runner up, and then I went again, I got first runner up, and then I won.
Yeah, I was there for. I don't remember you in the 12th, but I bet I was there. Because I oversaw all of the backstage stuff for the preliminaries up. I mean, for probably 7 or 8 years. And do you remember my dog, Aster? We did all of the preliminary stuff with, and she would always join me
I don't remember.
at the bar.
Mm-mm.
A lot of people do, because she and I were like
Really?
she and I were my
At the
dog.
filling station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She and I we handled all of the day stuff.
Really?
And then final night, of course, I always went. You had some evening gown issues for what, 3 years? Was it always evening gown that was really
And I don't think
kind
that
of your
it was
downfall?
so much that. I mean, when I look back, I think there was only. I think when it comes down to the evening gown situation or subject, it wasn't so much that they were horrible evening gowns. It was just more, I think, that in comparison to what everybody was wearing, in my mind, I always wanted to stick out, and I did, but not in a positive way. You know what? My thought was always, more of a theme.
Yeah.
Instead of glamorous evening gown.
Right.
And when you're standing next to some, that are just absolutely beautiful, they have the body for it, and that, of course you're going to be like, well, that's ugly,
Well, the very first year that I would like to talk about is your Missy Elliott year.
Mm-hmm.
And your evening gown was
The
camouflage, and your entire package was kind of built on
Right.
a Missy Elliott theme,
Right.
and your gown kind of went with that.
Right.
I totally bought it,
Mhm.
and really, I thought you were going to win that year. Now, I think the dress may have been a smidgen small,
Yeah.
but I totally bought it
Yeah.
that year. And
To be perfectly honest, every year that I went, those first 3 years, I never went to Miss USA thinking I could win Miss USA. I went because I wanted to learn. I went because I wanted to meet these people that I admired. I went because I wanted to be in the mix. And I figured if I'm really good, then I can earn some bookings out of these.
right.
It's a platform for so many people from across the nation to see me and see me at my best. So maybe I can get a booking or two out of this. That is really what my goal was. Even when I went really hard with the Missy Elliott thing, the only reason I went so hard in my talent and had, 14 dancers was because the last time I was at Miss USA, I was 12th. And I figured I haven't been in 2 years, so I have to make sure I go and I let them all know I've been doing my homework, I'm back, so y'all better get ready. That was my whole, And so to be able to get first runner-up, I was kind of like, oh my God, I can be Miss USA.
Wow,
That
I
was
can
the very
win
first
this.
time- that was
Yeah.
the very first time I was like, little old me, can be Miss USA. I never thought myself as to be those people that I look up to as Miss USAs. Erica Andrews and the Tandy Andrews and the Tommy Rosses, and I never considered myself to be anywhere in that group. But I was like, oh my God, yeah, I can do this. So really, in my heart, I only really competed to be Miss USA twice. Out of the 5 years that I went.
And so the next year, you were first runner-up again.
Right,
And
Raquel.
this was with the butterfly dress.
With the butterfly dress.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another amazing talent.
Mhm.
And then the next year, do you feel like you almost sort of had to walk it?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean,
What year?
I think that, especially the third year, it was yours to lose.
Right.
You'd been first runner-up twice, and so the third year, this is the time,
Right.
this is the time for Layla LaRue.
Right.
And so, what was going through your mind at the time to compete, going back as first runner-up for 2 years in a row?
Well, what happened with me personally was when I went back after being first runner-up the first time, when Raquel ended up winning. When I got first runner up again, I felt that my feelings were hurt because I went just as big, if not bigger, than the year before, and I made the adjustments that I thought that they needed from me to make. And it wasn't so much that about anyone else, but it was just about me. And I was like, well, I did what they asked me to do. I even tried to lose a little bit of weight, you know. And so
And you lost a lot of weight, actually.
And I think that was probably the thinnest I've ever been, you know, since I've been competing.
Did you feel? And this is something that we all talked about, that they didn't really want you because you were not a girl, a tranny, an augmented performer.
I don't think that it was so much that. I think what happened was that there was so many people on the judges panel that wanted me to win, and so many others that wanted someone else to win, and it allowed for someone that they weren't expecting to
squeak
win.
in.
You know, I really think that's what happened, but you know, of course, it hurt my feelings, and so I was like, you know, I was hurt by it because I felt, you know, well, I did everything I was supposed to do, you know, but.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. And then, so the year after that, you know, I just kind of felt like, you know what, I'm not going to put so much stress on myself. I'm just going to let it happen. If it happens, it happens. And if I don't, well, I know that it just wasn't meant to be.
And that was my point. Did you,
You know?
did you feel as though at that point that you had learned and experienced what they wanted,
Mm-hmm.
what they expected, and so that third year was sort of a walk, sort of, okay, this is how I do it.
Right.
This is how I think that you guys are expecting me to do it, so
Right.
ground me.
Right. And I was like, I'm going to give them what I can, but I'm not going to give them any more than I have. That was my mentality.
And those 3 years you had the show-stopping talent.
Right. I won
All 3
Best
years.
Talent all 3 years.
All 3
in a row.
years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, did you ever feel like, oh my God, I can't do gown?
I never felt that way.
Did you ever get any feelings of, you know, gown is my weakest?
And
gown
actually,
is-
the year that I ended up winning was the year I thought that I had the worst gown.
was that the one with
figure.
all the different colored foxtails?
Well, they were
Purple
all
and
one
green.
color, but they looked different on stage. And the gown that I had was dyed, and it wasn't dyed enough, so it read different with the light and
Yeah.
so far away. And so even in pictures, I'm like, whose gown is that? That is not the one I purchased. But you know, what I've learned, and in preparation for Miss Gay Classic, I started working on my evening gown first because I have always gotten excited about talent. You know, I love the talent portion. It's my favorite. It's the highest scoring part of the pageant. So it's really what people go to see, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, so gown has always.
I think they go to see the gowns too.
Well, they do, but for me personally, it's my favorite. So, you know, talent is what I always start on with first. So that was always my problem, is that gown would always come second. And so then by the time the pageant would come around, I had no choice but to wear what it was that I ordered or got. And if it was late, it was late. If it was too small, it was too small, or whatever. And so I had no backup, you know. So preparations for Classic, I started with the gown first, and it was like, let me get all that together and make sure that that's correct, you know. And although I didn't win gown at Classic, I felt probably the best I've ever felt, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I felt that I looked good.
And I think
you know.
it was probably your best gown of all time.
Yeah, probably.
And I've seen probably most of them.
Mm-hmm.
You have an unbelievable support system.
Yes. Very lucky.
Unbelievable support system. You've got 20 people that you can call upon to
Yeah.
back up dance for you,
Mm-hmm.
and all of these people are really
My friends.
they're your friends,
Yeah.
but they're also very talented and
Yeah.
dancers.
Mm-hmm. I'm very lucky with that, you know, and I can honestly say of every pageant that I've ever competed in, I've only paid my dancers one time,
One time.
you know, but I tell them up front, look, this is what I can offer you if you want to take this as a payment, but you can keep my friendship forever, and I take care of them forever, You know, it's like if they ever need something, they know who to call. If I can do something for them, I will. I take them on trips whenever I can. You know, I have them go with me places just to backup dance for me, just so that I can take them, just so that they can experience this and that. And that's my way of saying thank you for everything that you've done for me.
Do you get them there, or do they get themselves there?
It depends on where we're going.
Yeah.
You know, if I can get them there, then it becomes a road trip and we get to hang out.
Yeah.
You know, and I love that part, you
Yeah.
know, because I get to keep my friends that way. You know, whereas others, they hire dancers, they rehearse with them, and then they leave them, and they don't connect, so they're not there sometimes for the same purpose.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that really has a lot to do with it. If you're all of there dancing together for the same purpose, then you win together or you don't. But y'all are all there together, and it's an experience. The
Well,
whole.
one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I discussed with you